What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We're here with some picks for the Masters. These are guys that you want to put in your DraftKings lineups, your FanDuel lineups, maybe make some bets on them. But a quick synopsis on how to approach this year's Masters tournament. Welcome, I'm Brian Jester, co founder here at Occupy Fantasy. I am joined by our PGA DFS writer at Occupy and known anonymous online internet figure, Niromada. Niro, what's up, man? How you doing?
Wow, that's a great intro. I'm good. Always exciting. It's Masters Week. It's Christmas for golf degenerate people like me. So I'm ready to go.
Absolutely. So what we're going to do in this video, we're going to talk about the top of the board in the betting markets. Who are the studs that we should be looking at for our DraftKings lineups or for our bets? We will analyze the live guys who have qualified and have been extended an invitation into this tournament. We will discuss the betting markets, who are moving already. We're recording this Monday evening. Do we have any early trifecta plays? If you don't know what that is, don't worry, we will tell you. And then we'll discuss the course conditions, if there are any changes in the player profiles we should be looking for this year. And then we'll talk about maybe some of the unknowns, the amateurs, the old heads who have qualified. Are these guys who are going to be 1% owned? Are they worth putting in any of our lineups? And we'll close it out at the very end of the show with our favorite plays as of Monday. Granted, this has a chance to change throughout the week as everything else changes, but as Monday goes, we'll give you our best plays for tournaments, how to help you win that $1 million top prize on DraftKings. And if you're new, you may be wondering, why the hell should I be listening to these two guys? Great question. Both Nero and I both have six-figure victories in a single day in PGA DFS. In Nero, unlike other shows that people may listen to, one, yes, we do have an Occupy model, which is data-driven, and I think two things that make that different than other industry models. It focuses on longer-term form. It has a putting variance metric that has proven to be very predictive. And two, in conjunction with the model, Nero, you and I look at a lot of betting market data and subjective factors that can put some more emphasis or help us uncover some gems that the data may not provide.
Yeah, I think it's a nice combo between the information that's in the plug, which is a little bit more subjective, and the model itself, which is very data driven. I like to think of it as like there are certainly a lot of players that are better at DFS than I am, and there are a lot of people that have more golf knowledge than I do. But when you cross those two things together, there's not a ton of those people, and most of the people who can beat me in that cross section are more data focused. And if they were doing this video, they'd be like, "Well, my model says to play this guy because the projection is X." So at least I can hopefully give some explanations as to why some of that might be the case and why some of the data that gets fed into models sometimes, I think, especially in a sport like golf, can be a little bit misleading. So
Absolutely. So that's a great explanation. So let's start and let's go right away with the top of the odds board. And we're looking at guys who are 10K or higher on DraftKings. Now, a vast majority of people watching this video and in the DraftKings contest will start their lineup with one, maybe two guys in this 10K range. That includes Scotty Scheffler, John Rahm, Rory McIlroy, Brooks Koepka, and Wyndham Clark. I guess you can include Xander in that mix as well at $9,900. I think if you just think about this just from a casual perspective, Niromada, and sometimes the simplest explanations are the best. And we could do all this analysis, but we could get 5-1 on our money for the best player on the planet to win the Masters, a tournament that he has already won, in Scotty Scheffler. Like, should we just end the show here? We both put 10 units on Scotty Scheffler, and then we can just enjoy the tournament.
I wouldn't fight anybody on that. Scotty is certainly far and away the best player on the planet right now. And to be clear, 4.5 to 1 to win a tournament is absurd. But if anybody could make those odds pay off and have them not be so absurd, it's Scotty. Other things in his favor. He's won here before, and this is a limited field. There's 90-ish golfers, in a regular week. There's approaching 140 or 150. The cut rules make it so that anybody within 10 shots of the lead makes it into the weekend. And Scotty probably plays the best strategic golf out of anybody on the tour right now. And Augusta is just a strategic golf course heaven. So he's very well suited to the course. He has a ton of things in his favor, and I wouldn't talk anybody out of, either locking him into your DFS lineups if you want to go that way, or just betting him outright with more units than usual and being like, that's it, I'm done. I'm done for the tournament.
And just for reference, if you look at his recent tournaments, T2, 1, 1, T10, T3, T6, T17, T5. So not bad at all. So
Absurd, man. Like literally absurd. You haven't seen odds this low for someone to win at Augusta since, legitimately like peak Tiger Woods.
yeah,
And that's crazy.
it is crazy. So all right, he is $900 more expensive than John Rahm, and $1,300 more expensive than the next guy in Rory. So if we're not playing Scheffler, what are the arguments for Rahm, Rory, Kepka, Wyndham, Xander, aside from price savings?
Yeah, I think the thing is that all of these guys clearly, Kepka has won 5 majors already. Rory, I don't know what his exact count is, but he needs the Masters for the career Grand Slam. Rahm, multiple major winner, won the Masters last year. Wyndham Clark won the U.S. Open. Schauffele's the only one of that crew that has really underperformed in majors. My point is that like the ceiling for those guys below them still exists, and it's still there, and you can certainly make you can pick your data points and make cases for each of them. The market, since we're talking about the odds, likes Clark the least. Man, especially on Pinnacle, his odds are crazy high compared to the rest of those guys. The next best price on Pinnacle is McIlroy, who's in the third slot there. And I think if I had to pick out of that crew, I would probably take Schauffele for the savings, and I would cross my fingers that this would be the year that he would figure out how to close the deal in a major. And if I didn't want to play the savings angle, I think I would take McIlroy or Kepka. Rahm is obviously great. There's some defending champion narratives that show it's pretty hard to win here as a defending champ. That's probably overblown a little bit. His stats on live are very good. The flip side is Rahm has not won a golf tournament since he won this last year, which is hard to believe, but it's true. That includes all of his live starts. So just not sure that we've got peak John Rahm. Last year, Rahm came in here, and I believe he had won 3 of his first 5 starts on the PGA Tour. I mean, he was red hot. So anyway, it's not to say that Rahm can't win; he certainly can. But I think that would be my preferred order for the rest of those guys.
All right, so Rom coming off of Live, Kepka coming off of Live. We also have a bunch of other guys. And for those of you who are wondering who's in the field, how did they get in the field, I'm going to pull up an article really quickly. This is on the PGA Tour website. It's the Masters field by the numbers, how people got in. It's a variety of ways you can qualify. And so we have guys like Dustin Johnson, Patrick Reed, Phil Mickelson, Sergio Garcia, Bubba Watson, who have won the Masters before. They're on Live. They have qualified automatically for this major. Then we have guys, I guess Charles Schwartzel counts as well, winner in 2011. But then we also have guys like Bryson, who has won another major. We have Cam Smith, won another major. Tyrrell Hatton qualified for the PGA Tour Top 50 last year. And then Joaquin Neiman extended an invitation after a bunch of complaining there, Nero, at the end. And Neiman's in the field as well. So when you add Rahm and Koepka to this list of guys, generally we have found, at least last year, that these guys were lower owned in majors for the most part, assuming their odds weren't out of whack. So how are you handling these guys? We love getting low-owned players in big DFS tournaments, and the $10 certainly qualifies as a big tournament this week as far as size of the field. So talk to me about the live guys. Any guys stand out to you? Are you going to be overweight on them for the most part? What is your angle for live golfers in the Masters?
Yeah, it's a great great question. Excuse me. Let me revisit a few stats from last year. Last year's Masters, our first Masters where we had live golfers. Live started in 2022, but it didn't start until June. So the Masters in 2022, we still had, everyone was intact with the PGA Tour. So you had 18 live golfers who were in the Masters last year. 12 made cuts, 4 missed cuts, and then 2 WDs, which were going to be missed cuts. Remember, we had all the weather shenanigans last year in the first 2 days. So we had top finishes. Mickelson was second place, 1% owned. Kepka also tied for second, 18% owned. And Patrick Reed was in fourth at 9.8% owned. So only 2 of our 18 live golfers were owned by over 10% of the field in the $15 milli, and that was Brooks Koepka and Mito Pereira. So I don't think you're going to get as big of a discount this year because I think most people saw the live golfers play pretty well in the majors last year, and last year's Masters there was more questions about what's the layoff, the rust factor, not competing, all that kind of stuff. But I think you will still get discounted ownership on all live golfers in relation to their ceiling. And when we're talking large field tournaments and DFS, that's really all we care about. Certainly, the lack of competitive reps and that kind of thing, none of that helps the live guys. There are plenty of reasons why it's fine to not play the live guys heavy, but in a situation where we are starving ourselves trying to find leverageable players, especially in a smaller field like the Masters, again, where there's only 90 guys, and probably if we're being realistic, there's really only about 60, 65 guys because there's so many past champions, amateurs, and assorted other folks at the bottom of the leaderboard that really have no realistic chance to compete. So you've got a small field, and you get golfers with high end ceilings at lower than they should be for ownership. I'll take that risk all the time. I know last year for certainly I over indexed on the live guys, and that is absolutely my plan to do it again this year. Same reasons. I don't think I'm going to get as much leverage as I got last year. I don't think I'm going to get as much discounts on the ownership as I got last year, but same reasons. If I look at the list, I mean, Kepka makes, he's the easiest one because one major last year, still obviously big game player, big game hunter. I expect him to play very well in this, but he will also probably be the highest owned live player, would be my guess. I'm not 100% sure there, but that's my guess. Like DJ should be lower owned. He's overpriced for his odds. I think he's been playing well. Um, I know he did not like the way he played in the majors last year as a live golfer, so I think he's got a little bit of extra motivation. And then somebody like Neiman has all the current form stuff. He'll probably be the second highest owned live guy, is my guess, behind Kepka. Maybe he'll be the highest. Not 100% sure there. And then somebody with great course history like Patrick Reed. Like guarantee you, I will be over the field on Patrick Reed. Has not been playing very well on live until you go to his last two starts, and he was fourth and ninth, and his ball striking stats are back in a good range. He's got great course history. I prefer at Augusta someone like Reed, someone like George Smith. I prefer the artist over the scientist, over the trackman golf guy. I prefer the artist type at Augusta. So I'm always going to be a little more biased to the Reeds and Spieths of the world. But I think for that, and then maybe Cam Smith for that same reason, he's going to be very low owned because his current form is not very good at all. So you're going to be taking on extra risk with him, but you'll get rewarded with pretty low ownership. So I think that's my those are my preferences for the live guys, and that's how I'm going to handle them like at a macro high level.
So two comments. When you say not science, not TrackMan, that immediately disqualifies Bryson, I would assume, from that conversation for you.
Yeah, I mean, I get the distance advantage. It doesn't seem like in the last 4 to 5 years the distance has mattered as much at Augusta as it used to matter in the past. In Augusta, the truth is it's filled with downhill lies, side hill lies, a lot of tight chips to very undulating greens and that kind of thing. I'm not saying that Bryson at some point in his career won't figure out Augusta, but it's not a course that is inherently suited to him. He's perfect for U.S. Open with 17-inch rough all over the place that he can bomb and gouge and just like beat it into submission. You cannot beat Augusta National into submission. I think Rory has been learning that the hard way. He's paid for his aggressiveness with inability to win a green jacket. I expect a more patient, measured Rory this year, and I think that is the best way to win around here, and that is just not Bryson's style.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. And again, looking at the ownership and we talk about subjective factors we talked about at the top of the show. You still listen to these guys. Yes, they took a lot of money to go play golf on a different tour, but if you hear them talk about majors, any of these guys, you see the change in attitude These guys are still competitors at the highest level. Nero, we talked about this last year as reasons to play them despite the unknowns. That unknown still hasn't changed. These guys, yes, they may have sketchy current form on the Live Tour, but these guys flip a switch when it comes to the majors, assuming that they still are the competitors that they are. So to me, yes, it is a major. You're going to get full effort from everyone, but it feels like you're going to get even more effort, if possible, from the Live guys.
Yeah, I mean, when you said that, actually, I just literally had a moment of deja vu because I remembered back to us talking about that exact thing in this preview video last year. And I think this is probably the part where I told the math guys to turn away and just turn the volume down for a minute. But yes, it's like these are all alpha competitors. They all have a point to prove, especially the live guys. All they hear about all the time is your tour's week, 3 rounds, we playing in shorts, music's blasting, whatever. It's not real golf. Like, this is obviously real golf. No one is really talking about live right now because, it is what it is and everyone's accepted it. So I would assume all of those guys, not even assume, I know they all come in with a point to prove. And to me, it's really, especially in golf, it matters because that extra fire can lead to extra focus. I'm sure you're going to get max effort from every single player in the field, but golf is a game of focus and extended focus. And if you have motivational advantages, look at Tiger Woods, the greatest grudge holder and perceived motivation finder of all time in golf. Like, if you can find that extra thing that helps you lock in longer, stronger than anybody else, it's going to be, in your best interest. I mean, look at Mickelson last year for second place. How did he do it? I mean, his results on both sides of that finish were atrocious before and after, and yet he rolled into Augusta and was up with the leaders for 4 rounds and finished in second place. Just unbelievable stuff.
Subjective factors, they work. So,
Mhm.
all right, next let's talk about the betting markets. And for those who are members of OccupyFantasy.com, you know the betting market update that Nero puts in our daily plug every Wednesday afternoon. Our Discord members, OccupyFantasy.com/Discord. If you're not in there, links in the description below. We post our trifecta plays. Essentially, what we do here at Occupy Fantasy, we track the betting odds for all golfers from the start of the week until the start of the tournament at what we consider sharp sportsbooks. Sports books that take sharp action from sharp bettors on golf specifically, and we track the odds as they move throughout the week. And if a golfer's odds to win have improved at every sharp sports book that we track, we call that a trifecta play. Now, generally, we get a pretty dynamic list by the time Wednesday afternoon rolls around, and that's when the updated numbers will be posted in the plug and in Discord. We do have one trifecta play so far. Granted, it's only Monday evening, but one golfer's odds to win have increased at every sports book, and we have 4 more that have increased at 2 of the 3 sports books. Nero, I'll name the guys. Maybe you just talk about them a little bit. The trifecta play first is Tommy Fleetwood, and the other guys who have moved at 2 books: Cam Young, Bryson, Brooks Koepka. So there's 2 live guys, and Adam Hadwin.
Yeah, well, Fleetwood makes sense because he played last week well, and has a win recently. I think he won in Dubai in December or January, like very early
Yep.
on in the European Tour event, and he ticks probably 70% of the boxes, maybe 80% of the boxes that you want at Augusta because he's so good with his irons, especially his long irons. And you're going to have a lot of long irons and mid to long iron shots at Augusta. You have wedges too, but those mid to long iron shots are to very small targets, especially if you can are more accurate than normal with those. That's Fleetwood to a T, and he has a very good. I'd say he's an underrated record in majors. A number of top tens, especially recently, like over the last 3 to 4 years. I don't know, 7, 8, something like that. Top tens in majors over the last 4 to 5 years, which is very good. So I can see why he would get some of that love. We'll talk about it in a minute, but it looks like that we're going to have wind at least on Thursday and Friday. He's an outstanding wind player, so that makes sense to me. I think I've made my anti-Bryson stance known, so I don't agree with that, but you can certainly take the opposite side of that equation and emphasize the distance angle for him and the fact that he thinks that it's a whatever he says it is a par 67 for him or a par 68. I can't remember exactly what he said it was 2 years ago. But he clearly thinks he can do well here. The Hadwin one's a little less makes a little less sense to me. But I think the thing I know I put it in the plug last year. The distance seems like it matters less here. I think that's less about the top end guys of the distance, and it's more about how the bottom guys in distance have caught up in the last 3 to 4 years through maybe swing speed training and advances in equipment, and now they're long enough. They're not long as a Bryson or a Cam Young, who is one of your other two of three people. But they're long enough now that they can get it around Augusta. There were years where the really short players were at a massive disadvantage, but there's enough dog legs and that kind of thing in Augusta that you can't just hit it 350 off of every tee. You have to dial it back, hit a lot of three woods and that kind of thing on some holes. So, you know, if you can hit it 300, which almost every single one of these guys can do nowadays, like that's long enough. Like, and if you're really good with your irons and have a really good short game, Adam had one, then you could compete around here. Now, to be clear, I don't think Hadwin is a guy I'm probably going to end up playing a lot of unless he gets the full trifecta treatment by Wednesday nights. But then I don't ever leave those guys out of my player pool. But I can at least see the reason why he's moving.
So you mentioned Cam Young as one of the two guys, or one of the guys who have moved at multiple books, but not all three. And
Yep.
this leads into our next segment that we want to talk about is what characteristics should we be looking for, if that has changed at all, in the experience narrative, right? Because if you hear anything about Augusta, first timers here, basically have no shot if that's what the narrative is. And then Data Golf, which is a great resource if you're not familiar, they put out some numbers about how guys see strokes gained bumps in what is it, year 3, 7, and 9, or whatever it is when coming to the Masters. I believe this is the third year for Cam Young, so maybe people are buying into that with his betting market bumps. So I guess just I'll give you the floor a bit on if anything has changed for the course in the last year. It doesn't sound like it, but the weather may play a part, and then your take on the experience angle.
Yeah, so let's start with the weather and then we'll transition to the course. So when I look at the weather that I just looked at before we hopped on here, I saw, fair amount of wind on Thursday, basically sustained from 15 to 20, gusting up to 35, possibly 40. And then Friday sustained maybe 12 to 15 with a little bit higher, approaching 20 for a couple hours there in the middle of the day, again with some higher gusts. So I mean that's legit wind, and there's a decent chance for some legitimate rain on Thursday morning. So I think you're gonna have firm and fast conditions. The area got a fair amount of rain in January and February and March. Hasn't gotten as much so far, maybe in the last week or so, and there hasn't been a ton, I don't think, in the run up, like in the last, let's say, 5 to 6 days. So I think they have the ability to kind of dial it in and get it. They're getting it closer to being as firm and fast as they want. But if it rains significantly on Thursday morning, all that goes out the window, and the course will be softer for the duration of the tournament. Now, let's say it rains a fair amount, even enough to like pull them off the course for an hour or two, and then they head back out there. Like, it will firm up definitely on the weekend, and Sunday it'll probably be pretty firm and fast again. But you just can't get rid of that moisture once it drops. Anyway, point is the weather's going to have an effect. It's going to be windy, and there's a possibility that it's going to be rainy, especially on Thursday and Friday to get yourself into the weekend. Saturday looks very calm. Sunday looks pretty calm also until Sunday afternoon. So going to be some wind, a little more wind again on Sunday afternoon. Again, it's a weather forecast, especially wind forecast. These things shift and change, but that's what it looks like so far for the weather. Now onto the course. Every year, the Green Jackets at Augusta make some changes, make some tweaks. They do probably a better job. I don't know about it. I suppose I'm not an expert enough to really say this definitively, but I'll just say they're very concerned with keeping up with the changes in the modern game. So they're constantly trying to add new tees, back tees, lengthen in certain places, shift tree lines a little bit in a certain place to try to retain the challenge. even with modern distances. So they put a new tee on the back of number two, lengthened it a little bit. I think they changed the a green complex a little bit on maybe three different greens, added another pin position or two, but that's pretty constant. They do that every year. We got 7,500 plus. I think it'll be close to 7,550 or 72. I don't think anything has changed enough that I'm going to change, who I'm looking for. And I absolutely play course history. I factor it more into my calculations in for Augusta National than I do for any other golf course. Not only does the data show that, my eyeballs tell me from watching the Masters for 40 plus years now. 50. I don't want to give away how old I'm old. But anyway, point being, I've watched a lot of Masters. Let's just say that. And it's a course that you learn because it's so nuanced and the slopes are so severe. It takes a couple trips around before you really get the hang of it. Obviously, some of these guys are just uber talented. Uh, Aubert and Wyndham Clark come to mind, right? Like two guys in the top 10 in the world who haven't played here yet. I mean, one of them could easily win. Not, I won't say easily. It won't be easy, but one of them could win this thing just based on their talent alone. But generally speaking, I will play course history and I will play guys who have a very positive course history here, heavier than I will, almost any other week of the year.
No, all really good stuff there. And the wind, while it may not develop a wave advantage this week, we could look to last week's event just as recently as how big the wind can play a factor. Nearly a two-stroke advantage for one wave last week. And Nero mentions this a lot in the plug as he updates the weather that a wave advantage may materialize. There may be one. We don't know which direction, but it's worth playing the wave in some of your lineups or split your lineups into different waves. And we saw last week it was a massive, massive edge. Now, we may not get it this week, but it just does prove a point that in addition to looking for guys who play well when there are windy conditions, we can also look to stack our lineups, especially at the bottom of the salary tiers when it comes to playing the wind. Nero, this next question has nothing to do with DFS at all, but there was it was floating around TikTok and Instagram. There was a question that was posed by someone who used to work at Augusta. And of course, all of the men overconfident in their athletic abilities jumped to say that they could obviously do this challenge. So I'm going to ask you, Nero, if you had unlimited mulligans and you had the entire day, could you shoot under par at Augusta National? Unlimited mulligans,
Oh,
every shot.
no way. No
Okay.
way. No chance.
Okay.
Never in a million years, man. And I would, my handicap, probably somewhere between, we'll just say like between a 15 and an 18. So, I can play, but I'm not that good. I'm just, I'm good enough. But no chance. There's not enough hours in the day, to do that. Well, again, I'm assuming you're making me play from the tees, same tees that the
Yes,
pros are
same
playing
tees.
from
Yep.
in borderline tournament conditions,
Yep.
and then I will tell you no chance. People have no idea. They do not appreciate how tough just the average course is. Like put yourself at the Rocket Mortgage in Detroit where these guys, the winner is 24 under par
Yeah.
and play the course, do that same game. Same unlimited mulligans for one day playing the same tees. If you're just an average, you know, double digit handicapper, try and get under par like that. I would say even at the Rocket Mortgage, you couldn't do that. So
So there you go. That answers that debate. If you watching this feel differently, matter of fact, if you play golf, how long do you think it would take you, the viewer? Comment below. We want to get as many comments as we can. How do you think you complete that challenge? You probably can't. And if you could, how long would it actually take? So, all right, let's move on here. We've talked about basically everything. We will close it out here with some of the less than 1% owned plays if they're worth playing whatsoever, and then Nero and I's favorite overall plays. So when we talk about less than 1%, we got the old champions. We have amateurs, some unknowns. I'll go to the bottom of the salary table here at Nero, and guys like Shipley, who else? Stubbs, Lamprecht, and then you have the older winners and Weir Singh and Olazabal. De La Fuente. Is it Hagstad? I actually don't know how to say his name. Uh, how is it?
Hagstad,
Hagstad. Okay,
Stuart
close enough.
Hagstad.
So any of these
Yep. Yep.
guys have any chance of making the optimal lineup?
I don't think so. I mean, I suppose if you felt like you had to, the two guys I would choose from that crew that you mentioned would be Lamprecht or De La Fuente because they're young, they're amateurs, they're both really long. I mean, Lamprecht is stupid long, and some of you might remember from the Open, um, just the last Open we had last year. He was in the top five, I think, at the end of the first day, or was close hunting, and then I believe he completely ejected and missed the cut on the second day. I'm not 1,000% sure, but I think it was something close to that. He might have made the cut, but he finished way down at the bottom. Anyway, he's stupid long, and so someone who's stupid long, could do some things here. But mostly, the rest of I prefer youth in that scenario because I don't know their ceilings.
Sure.
I know the ceilings on the older players. So anyone who's an amateur or is that kind of thing, if I have to pick one of those, I would take one of those players. But I think if that's where you are in the salary range, it's much better to take someone like Denny McCarthy, obviously at 6,200. Now he'll be pretty well owned because he's insanely cheap relative to his odds. But I would even rather have like an Austin Eckroat at 6,300, a Bubba Watson at 6,400. I mean, I don't even think I could take Lucas Glover here. He can certainly ball strike his way around, but like the putter here, I think will eventually undo him. But like Grayson Murray, Peter, like regular tour players, Adam Shank 6,200, like Lee Hodges 6,200. I would much rather have those guys than any of the other 10 to 15 guys below them.
Yeah, and it's not like you get that 5K golfer that we've seen in some DFS
Yeah.
tournaments this year. It's a $200-300 difference for a massive difference in form and overall talent level. So yeah, I agree. Really, no reason to play those guys. So. All right, we'll close it out. Favorite overall plays, and I'm thinking we'll just bounce back and forth here, Nero. Before we get into this final segment, reminder to check out our Occupy model. We've referenced it a couple times here. That is fully updated. Projected ownership will be in on Tuesday. Ranks every golfer for FanDuel and DraftKings using our proprietary OF Index formula. The daily plug will be out Tuesday at some point, maybe Wednesday morning. Nero's favorite overall plays that include subjective and betting market measures. His lineup construction tips, which I believe is the most important part of the plug. It tells you how to attack every single contest on FanDuel or DraftKings, depending on who you're playing. And our lineup builder allows you to build up to 300 PGA DFS lineups using the model, as well as the rules that Nero discusses in the plug. So if you're not a member already, go check it out, occupyfantasy.com. No better week than sign up than for a major. So, Nero, I'll go first since I'm hosting the show and I have the ability to do that. So, favorite play, I will go. I'm going to name a couple guys, no particular order, but some of the early ownership stuff I'm looking at on our back end, Kepka may not get over 15%. If that's the case, I think that's a hammer at the top. But a lot of this is going to be ownership dependent. So I'll go Kepka with my first pick.
Yeah, I like that. I would agree for those of you. I mean, when it comes time to Wednesday, if it looks like he's going to be less than 15%, I will definitely be over the field there. I think my favorite play when I factor in price and ownership, I will back off this again if this gets over 15% or if it gets closer to 20%. But for me, Russell Henley at 7,200 just makes so much sense. Now he's if you look at the betting markets, he's fairly appropriately priced, so I think that'll keep his ownership in check. But my own personal rankings that don't take the market, I have multiple sets of rankings, but I have one set of rankings that takes the market doesn't take any of the market stuff into effect, and I have Henley obscenely highly rated in those rankings. So I think that makes him my favorite overall play.
Love that at $7,200. And again, we're going to have to monitor the ownership here as well. Another one we have to monitor for is we're still not entirely sure on how Joaquin Niemann's ownership is going to end up. I'm not intentionally picking live guys here. These are guys that just rank high in the model. I've gotten some betting market love already, but Niemann at $9,600, if he's under 15%, didn't someone just say, oh no, that was Taylor Gooch that was the best ball striker of the last 20 years. But I don't think that's true. However, Niemann has been tearing it up on live, and if he's a young guy. Lots of high current and long-term ceilings. So Neiman at 9,600 is another guy that I'm interested in.
Yeah, really good. I like that. Again, this would be I mentioned him earlier. This would be more of a game theory ish play, but Dustin Johnson, I think his ownership is going to be relatively low. It's not going to be absurdly low because he's Dustin Johnson. I think he's a little bit overpriced for what his odds are. I don't think he's going to pop in a ton of models, and I think he's been playing solid on live without going crazy. Stats pretty good. Did win there not too long ago, a couple months ago. So I think he's a nice leverage spot.
I had him start as someone who might not even exceed 10% ownership in this field.
Yeah,
So if
I mean
that's the case,
that's why. Yeah.
yeah, we will love that if that's the case. Another guy who was added just as recently as Akshay Bhatia, who won on Sunday, is Benny On, who qualified via the top 50 world golf ranking players as of the week before the Masters. Now, this wasn't really a shock. I think he was anticipating this, so it wasn't like, oh, shit, I got to go to Augusta tomorrow. No, he was in the rankings, but he was officially added to the tournament this past weekend. So Benny on $6,700. Early ownership has him less than 5%, and our model really likes him for a lot of the factors that are important at this course. We haven't talked about him at all. Nero, do you feel similarly about Benny on?
I like it. You're gonna. He's not gonna be well owned because he missed his last two cuts. So he missed the cut at the Texas Open and he missed the cut at the Players. But golf stuff shifts. I think the thing is, long term or class is permanent, short term, whatever. Like he's still a very good player, even though he missed his last two cuts. Because if you go before that, his finishes are eighth, 21st, 16th, 66th, 31st, second, and fourth. And the fourth was at the Century in Hawaii. Now, the Century 28 under whatever to win it, but is very similar to Augusta in that it is massively sloping, huge undulations up and down, and the greens are really slopey. They're not nearly as fast as Augusta, obviously, but there's a lot of similarities to that course, and he played great there. And I think generally speaking, he's been playing above his baseline. So it's sub 5%. Model likes him, getting love in the betting markets already. Like very solid, very solid play for with Ben on.
I agree, and we didn't hit on this, but you and I looked at a lot of data as we collected more data with the elevated events this year that have a similar format to the Masters. Almost every small field lineup in the top five over the course of Masters history, elevated events history, includes some sort of 6K player in their lineups. That will not be any different likely here, so Benion qualifies there. So again, if you're just thinking about it from a very high level, try to get a 6K golfer into your lineup because it does allow you to get one of the studs in generally. So, Nero, any other guys that make your favorite plays list as of Monday evening?
Yeah, I think I would have to take Spieth. Again, I have a bias towards the artist in here. I've already said that. Um, really, his ball striking stats last week were just outstanding, especially off the tee. And if you're going to tell me that I get Jordan Spieth, who's in a very good spot ball striking wise as he comes to Augusta, then I'll take that. I'll take that every day because I know his short game and his putter are going to be there, and I know his experience is going to help. So I'll take Spieth and I'll go battle some of those guys at the top with him.
Are there any buildings he can hit on top of to get relief at Augusta?
I think he can get it into the Butler cabin or some of the cabins, maybe down number 10, and get it stuck in a gutter and get a temporary movable instruction relief. Like only Spieth would figure that out and then purposely hit it up
Yeah.
onto a roof, into a gutter to get relief.
For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, go Google or go search on Twitter for Spieth's shot onto the clubhouse last week, which was insane. So that'll do it for this show. Nero, I'll give you the floor. Anything we haven't talked about, anything you're looking forward to, anything people should be thinking about over the next couple of days as we're starting to build lineups?
I think we covered it all. I'll give another shout out for Occupy. I think it is a great week to come give it a shot. Get the plug, get the Discord, get the model. Even if you just want to try it out for a week or some short amount of time, I think this is a great week to give it a shot. There's a lot of good content between what's in the model and what's in the plug. It's a good week to give it a shot.
There you go. So if you want to chat more with Nero, come join our Discord server, occupyfantasy.com/Discord. Link is in the description below. I'm on Twitter at BrianJesterFF. And again, occupyfantasy.com is where you can find everything. If you like what you saw here, make sure you subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. It is free to do so. The best way to support us, if you don't want to give us any money, that's fine. Give us a thumbs up. And we're not doing golf videos every week, but we're likely doing it for the major. So subscribing is the best way to get notified when we post a video here on the YouTube channel. Again, any questions, throw them in the comments below. I will monitor the channel through Thursday. And we do want to hear what how you would shoot at Augusta if you got unlimited mulligans. So definitely comment below with your likely overestimation of your ability. So for Nero, I am Brian. Thank you for listening, and good luck as always at the Masters.